Hello, everyone. Hi. So I've been seeing more and more people lately using the Tea Leaf Oracle deck, and I was like, I really want this, and I gotta have it. Well, I don't gotta like I don't have to have it, but this is a deck I would like to add to my collection. Only thing I didn't like is the round design because it's really hard for me to shuffle, and it seems like I already struggle with shuffling enough already. But I'm excited. 200 round cards, a 98-page guidebook, Tea Leaf Fortune cards, U.S. Game Systems Inc. Think I know it was U.S. Games something that did the vice verses. 182 symbolic cards, 12-month cards, and 6 astral house cards. Drawstring bag for mixing the cards. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is because I know this symbol. So this is the same company that at least published the Pride Tarot deck. So they have some really cool stuff, apparently. And I'm kind of surprised, honestly. Like, because so my introduction to the Pride Tarot, Benabel Wynn. Oh my gosh, I need to pre-order SKT the Third. Anyway, she's someone who I absolutely adore on here. And when everything started happening, hearing her, I guess, at the intersection of what she can do, and talking about the different disparities, also about how her own sort of political, her own belief systems kind of leads her to have the perspective that she has and would lead her to the approach that she would take as someone who is a practitioner or someone who practices the way she practices her faith and her belief. And that being at the intersection of how we sort of show up, I think was interesting because I think sometimes, especially depending on if you are more focal to a certain issue or if the spotlight is more on you, and so you have a little bit more at stake or on the line, you're a little bit more of a stakeholder in that particular conversation, how you sort of show up for yourself and how you process things. I think it's just an interesting conversation to be had there, which, she did. So, with her. Anyway, she did a spread from the Pride Tarot in her Sightsee the Tarot series that I absolutely adore. Now that one, it might have been about like career planning or something like that. So I didn't get too into it because at that point I wasn't, really doing anything career wise like I am now. Um, but when she said what the Pride Tarot was, I looked it up, I followed through, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love this. And that's how I got into it. So let's go. Let's get into this. What am I looking at? I don't know. I just want to pull a few of these. How is this? Oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is really interesting. Okay. How is this year going so far for y'all? I know things were crazy yesterday here in the USA. And I think it's interesting that it looks like a little bit of what not a lot of people, what some people have been saying would happen with a lot of this Martian energy in Aries. I think it's interesting. Now, it could be the critical degree of Aries or whatever that made everything like kind of sort of pop off. But to me, it's interesting that Uranus is in early Taurus right now, and Aries just crossed the cusp into Taurus. And now I think it's more so a space of challenge. And I think Uranus does challenge in a very interesting way. I'm not an astrologer. I'm just someone who has a limited knowledge of astrology, connected sometimes to a very limited knowledge of Greco-Roman mythology. Um, but I think it does challenge in an interesting way. Like, I feel like the energy of Uranus could be that of like, it's almost like a be careful what you wish for type of energy in the way of that, like, it will kind of sort of show you what you think you want, or show you an extreme in order for you to really see or get what it is that you're supposed to see or get. And on one hand, it's a lot of things, but what it gives us the opportunity to do is to really decide to move forward, right? It's almost like if things weren't as extreme, then we would be stuck somewhere in the middle again. We would be stuck in complacence where it's like after it's over, then we forget that it happened. And so we don't do the thing that we needed to do. It reminds me of how we can kind of sort of be like that sometimes. It's like, when you're in a situation, you're like, oh, like you pray to your whatever you believe in. And we make these claims of how we're going to change if the situation is ended. And then when the situation is over, it's like business, like back to business as usual. And it's really important for us to not go back to, it's really important for us to not go back to business as usual. And so, again, it's like really exacerbating some things. It's like the shadow is getting really, really, really apparent and obvious so that we don't forget and that we continue to move forward. But, I'm the type of person who has learned to view things as opportunities. So, yeah, I think it's, I don't know. I think lots of things are changing in ways that, and like, not to mention that we're also positioned to at least make a lot of progress now. And the margins are a lot narrower than one would like, than I would like. But also I kind of sort of get it. Also, I don't know, it seems that from I want to say an architectural point of view, that it would be like this, but it's architectural in a way that, like, it's like how sometimes things kind of sort of play out like a movie. Not necessarily a bad movie, but like a movie. And how extreme it can be, or how close things can be. And they're like, oh, but we barely did it. But it's like it's real life. And it takes me back to that, I guess, Hierophant energy from the SKT that I was seeing all that time, early to mid last year. Maybe between March and April, I think, maybe into May as well. That was really that, like, one person standing in their power is more powerful or has more weight than one who is a part of many, because it's the voice of the Hierophant that's heard more so than the voice of the individuals within that collective. And then everything else just kind of sort of phases in and out, especially when we are more conscious and cognizant, and when we aren't avoiding, and when we're actually facing things, because that's what it means, right? You don't solve problems by ignoring them or pretending that they don't exist. And I think that's something that a lot of people kind of sort of tried to do for a while. It's like, we made some progress and then thought everything was solved, only to find out very in your face, matter of factly, that that wasn't the case. And, hopefully we've learned to be more diligent. But anyway, I don't really have, well, that was loud. I don't really have much to say. I'm trying to get these open. Honestly, I kind of sort of, I feel like I've said and done everything that I can say and do for the collective. Honestly, I feel like I'm moving into a period of my life where I'm focusing more on me, because I was so focused on everything else. And it feels like the space that I'm in, I don't know, like when it comes to the transits and the lunar transits in particular, I'll see some people who are like, oh, that full moon, or oh, this new moon. And I'm just sitting over here like, oh, like I slept. Like it's my break time. Like, so I wasn't extremely emotional on that full moon in Cancer. That was the last full moon of 2020. I don't know. I haven't really been hit by the moon like I was getting hit by the moon late 2019 to mid 2020. I think it was almost that space where I really started using my voice towards June and getting leading up to that space when like the Cancer and the Pisces full moons didn't hit me like they used to. Like Cancer and Pisces full moons used to make me cry like every time. Not always like bad cry. Sometimes it'd be like a cry of gratitude, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But I don't know. And for the stuff that I feel led to do now, a lot of that is more on the other channel. And I actually took down the video where I said I was going to be like doing personals and stuff like that, because maybe it's still for me to be open to it, but I don't know. And so, like, for anyone that I'm already in talks with for doing that, then I'm going to follow, like, I'm going to stick to those commitments. Because I'll honor that, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe after I get grounded in what it is I'm going to be doing next, I'll revisit it and see how I feel. But Happy New Year. I don't know if I said that. I think I actually love Uranus being in Taurus because it feels like Uranus has really set the tone for this space. And what used to work won't anymore. It's the end of a dying era and a dying age, and it's been dying for a long time. Not like a long time, but and it's not the type to go quietly in the night. But with it not being that type, again, it puts us in a space to consciously choose our direction moving forward. And that is actually really empowering. Oh, come on. I need to cut my nails too. And I got a veggie cutter. I ordered a veggie chopper. And then my mom was like, oh, I have one. I was like, what? I asked you like months ago, like March, after I came back from my little retreat, if you had a veggie cutter. And you're like, well, I have like a vegetable processor. Well, I might have asked her about a blender that time. But she said she cut herself on hers. And I'm like, oh, this one is more user-friendly. The blades are more guarded. The one she got is just like open. I'm looking at this like, excuse me? How this work? How does this work is the question. I have like no room for this. It came and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have any more room for cards in my little. See, oh my gosh, this is shuffle. Okay, all right. Ooh, this thing thick. I don't know. Let's just get some random messages. We're entering the year of the ox, right? Oh, there's one. Oh my gosh, another card on the floor. So I used the energy oracle cards, I think, the other day. And then like the next day I found 3 cards on the floor. After I was like, ooh, Seahorse Spirit. Our spirit. Family matters. Seahorse is interesting because Seahorse is a masculine energy that gives birth. Seahorse is also interesting because it's one of those aquatic animals that with the star at the top of the deck, the seahorse and the star. That's interesting. What's the star say? And the stork is under the star. The stork and the stars, those are Lenormand cards. Guaranteed success. Okay. That's high. Love that. But It's one of those creatures where we blend something aquatic with something that isn't aquatic, right? Like a catfish. Um, cats are things that we have above ground. Even seaweed to a certain degree and to a certain extent. And so horses are all about movement and also about freedom, but it's the freedom to move, right? It's like movement unrestrained and unrestricted. And then when we put the influence of the sea there, there's an energy of submersion and also an energy of emotion. And so this is a certain unbridled emotional spiritual freedom that leads to these guaranteed successes. And this energy is interesting because it's not like a starfish, right? Starfishes, well, actually, yeah, it kind of is. And we see that here. Speaking of seaweed, also, it is like starfish energy because if the seahorses don't anchor themselves with those tails, then they get swept away in the water. They just don't anchor themselves to rocks. And the seaweed is more organic. It's less stable, it's less defined. Not necessarily stable, because it's still stable, but it's less fixed. And also with water, like there are these times where like if you don't anchor yourself, you're gonna blow away and end up who knows where, especially if you're a little seahorse. But also you have to be it's there's an element of mobility here where you have to take into account the resistance of the water. And you have to be able to overcome the resistance of the water while also at the same time knowing to flow with the current, while also at the same time knowing when to anchor yourself so that you can be in the current but not be displaced by it. And there's an energy here that, like I said, it's submersed. There is no separation when you are a seahorse or a lot of other sea creatures. You're always in the water. And I think that's something that we don't fully realize or take into account sometimes, is that we're always in the water. And it's not to get extremely anxious over the things that we think about or something like that, but it's to train the self. And again, it's this energy of masculine coming into its powers of creation. Creation isn't done with feminine energy alone. And masculine does more than just like drop some information from for the feminine to take on and then create life by herself. And it's not to take away from what the feminine can do and the beauty and the majesty of that, but also there's a second, like there's more to creative energy that is not a part of the equation at all, that will keep us in these positions of operating at limited capacities. And so I'm going to read this. It says Family Matters, but I don't even know how these. Okay, they're alphabetical. Thank you. Thank you. Ear scales. Seahorse. Oh, there's Rooster. That's me. Seahorse is Family Matters. A seahorse floats in calm, warm waters. Even though this seahorse is male, I almost don't need my reading glasses for this. Oh wait, I kind of don't, but I'm gonna keep them on anyway. Although the seahorse is male, it carries eggs from the female in its abdominal pouch where they will remain until they hatch. This card signifies that you will feel weighted down family matters during the time frame shown. Check connecting cards to see if they reveal the nature of the family matters. Well, the star is Aquarius. So it's like, oh, the Aquarius season, age of Aquarius. But a lot of people are saying that like soul tribes and things like that are going to be coming together, which I don't necessarily disagree with. The star, guaranteed success. A brilliant star glows in the heavens, outshining all others around it. That's that what Star of Bethlehem, the Christmas star. Lucky is the queerest. Okay. Who chooses this card? For you are guaranteed success in some endeavor. It could be an affair of the heart, a business opportunity, or a financial situation. Check connecting cards to see if they reveal nature of the success. And we have the Stork and Family Matters. So not only do we have Family Matters, but with the Stork energy, there's an expansion of family in a way that it's like we know it's 332 right now. I've seen 111, 222, and we'll see if I catch 333. I'll probably miss it. And I didn't even know it was 111. I took a screenshot and then I was going to send it to my mom, and then I was cropping it, and then I noticed, like, oh, it's 111. And like, I saw this gorgeous squirrel today. It's infamous around here, but I finally saw it. I was coming back from the store with my brother. I had my matcha lemonade from Starbucks today. It was a good day today. Got some breakfast from Hardee's. The biscuits were popping as they always are. And then we came back, and then the black squirrel was just there, about to cross the little alley. Now this picture is blurry. I had to hurry up and get it. This picture is a little less blurry. Look at that. It's gorgeous. I was like, oh, like I thought it would be a gray squirrel, but no, it's like black. I was like, okay. And then I looked up black squirrel, and it was like it means like the solar eclipse and enemy of humanity, destroy it to get the light or something like that. And I was like, okay, the time for us destroying things to get to the light or to prove that we're right, like that's over. That's outdated. It doesn't work. And it's almost like, how is it still 332? Really? Maybe I shouldn't force it. No, I'm gonna do it. There it is right there, 333. Because it's almost like if there are certain things that are, certain things that don't need to be proven by force, certain things that force almost discredits or weakens the result of, and it's a very Five of Swords type of energy. And I think that's related to this, knowing when to sort of just go with the flow, because again, it's like sometimes it's not to get washed under the current. And that's what happens. Oh gosh. Okay, well, I'll take the one that, hey, look, horseshoe. Yeah, we'll take this one. The gong. I tried to buy a gong. It was on sale. The woman was like, oh, like it's been there for a while and it's going to get marked down even more if it doesn't get sold. I waited and somebody else bought it. And so that's another thing I've been playing with the bat at the bottom of the deck. Bat is, and the carrot is under the bat. Bat says, take care, enemies are working against you. And the gong says, an exciting event. It's this thing that, oh, wait, what is this? I guess I didn't even notice that. We'll save that one for later. It's the sentiment like the things that are meant for us won't pass us by. And while I do believe that that is true, I think it's also false. That, you know, we always go when it's our time. While I do believe that that's true, I think it's also false. And I think it's really about navigating and accepting the paradoxical nature of the lives that we live and the place that we're in. I think that there are certain things that are meant for us. But I also think that if we don't take those things, then the season will pass. And when a season passes, then we have to move on to whatever the next season is. And sometimes there are things that won't come back into season for some time. To everything, there is a season. And we have our own seasons, right? We have seasons and cycles of growth and healing and progress. And sometimes there is a little bit of a winter time. And there is a way, I feel, to navigate things such that we're always in season. And like I said, like if you miss the season is gone. And it doesn't mean that that thing wasn't meant for you. Does it mean that you weren't ready to receive it? Probably, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that it can mean, but I don't think it's always, oh, it wasn't meant for me because it didn't wait for me. It wasn't meant for me because it didn't let me treat it however. It wasn't meant for me because of whatever reason you want to put in there. I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I waited on that gong. I could have gotten it that time. And she told me, she was like, you know, in a few days, I think it was almost at the top of August too, I believe. Because I think she was like on August 1st, you know, it's going to go down even more. But there's no guarantee that it'll be here. And I was there with my mom. At this point, I didn't really have a car on campus, and the buses weren't yet on the school schedule. And so they were still running, but like I wasn't going to go back out to the mall. And had I taken all those factors into consideration, I probably would have gotten it. Another thing, though, it was like, you know, I do really like this, but it might be too loud. And that was one of my concerns with getting a singing bowl. It's like I don't have my own space, so it's going to be too loud. I get the singing bowl. I'm back here using it. And I asked my mom if she can hear it. She's like, no, I don't hear anything. I'm like, oh, okay. So that reason, that excuse of it bothering someone else, while it came from a good place, it was ungrounded and unfounded. And it caused me to miss out on something that I could have gotten before, because maybe that also would have been the case. And speaking of loudness, with the bat being here, there is this energy of disturbances in how we navigate, right? Because bats use echolocation. But if there's a gong there, then it's almost like it can drown out everything else that's around it. But it's like, again, here's another paradox. While the bat's hearing is so sensitive that it can use something like echolocation to navigate and to see even when it can't see, it is not so sensitive that one loud noise will significantly impact its ability to still find what it needs to see. And so I think that there is a little bit of, it's not necessarily a lack of faith or a lack of trust, but it kind of sort of reads that way. Maybe in the self. Maybe it's this overemphasis on the things that are the loudest around us, but not necessarily in a dismissive way, because it is still to know that the gong is there. And here's, oh, the bear. Of course, it's the bear. Danger, especially in money matters. What's up with danger here? Danger in the bear. Take care in the bat. Enemies are working against you. This to me, though, again, going back to the gong, it reads on what we're focusing on. And it's not to be unaware. It's it's to be consciously aware. I might have to split this thing or something. This is a lot. This is a lot of cards. Okay, what card is that? Ooh, the fair woman. That can be a justice energy. And the older man. Okay. Well, that older man energy is. Oh my gosh. I'll keep the weeping willow. Everything else is going back. August is the card that came out. Hey, I just hit the 1st of August. That's interesting. So there's a little. Well, okay, I'll keep them. So they're in alphabetical order because I just got this deck. But also They could not be if they weren't supposed to be. So the weeping willow, the whale and the whale. Now the whale and the whale are homonyms, words that sound the same, but they mean different things, or they're spelled differently. Homophones, they're homophones because they're pronounced the same. Homonyms are words that are spelled the same, but they mean different things, like bear and bear, like B-A-R-E. One of them is like empty or desolate or not, it's like void of life. The other one is to carry something, right? That's my burden to bear. That's my cross to bear. Oh, this land is bare. And then we have this weeping willow, which is family sorrow. What's up with all this family stuff going on? There's family sorrow, there's family success. But it's this well energy. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Family wishes come true is the whale. And then great worry over nothing is the whale. And with the weeping willow, there is this energy of it being connected to water, also because it is crying. And this is another energy that I feel, I know this, I'm recovered now. On the first, there was a New Year's read that it didn't end up happening until the first. And then there was another project that I've talked about that I also started on the first, ended up in a 3 to 4 hour call doing the New Year's spread and with a 2-hour breathwork session in between. So I ended up catching up with one of my best friends at earlier that day. And then she signed me up for the breathwork thing. And honestly, one of the things that I'm working through right now is around community. And I'm feeling this pull to begin working with people, or to, I guess maybe that's because I did say that a lot of people are saying that we're going to be finding our soul tribes and stuff like that. And it's not to say that I disagree or whatever, but for me, there's a lot of hesitation around it because I'm kind of sort of highly dynamic in that I don't necessarily stay on any one thing for too long. And that's okay. But I have a lot of reservations around it. And so when she was like, hey, do you want to, she was like, have you ever done breath work? I was like, oh, no. She was like, oh, are you interested in it? I was like, yeah. And then so she signed me up for this thing. It was conducted over Zoom. So there were many people there. And I'm like, oh gosh. But also this is something that I've been knowing for the past minute. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And she was excited. And she was like, this feels good. I was like, yeah, it does. It feels like something I should be doing. And so I had that experience in between our reading, and it went longer than what I thought. I thought it was going to be pre-recorded and sent. She wanted to do it live. I was like, okay, now I know why people charge more for live sessions. Anyway, it was fine. I loved the experience. It was great. And we had that session on the in-between. Well, our session ran long, so we had to stop to go to the breathwork thing, and then we picked it back up after the breathwork. And then later that day, I had a 3-hour call where 2 hours to 2.5 hours of that was the other stuff, the project that I'm starting. I don't want to say it like that. It's a project for me because it involves me putting things down. And when I write a spread, sometimes the intentions on it are kind of loose because I don't necessarily want to nail anything down, because I allow the situation and the energy to put the pegs in the holes and to create the picture, right? It could be a blue square or a yellow square or a polka dot square between purple and gold, but it goes into the square peg. Now, it's not necessarily a peg like that, but it's a framework that can be filled in, right? With any colors, the lines are there, but not necessarily there. It's amorphous, it's nebulous, it can change. But with this, I'm having to be a little bit more structured. Structure isn't necessarily my strong suit unless I'm on the clock doing a job, and then my brain is in like, it goes into full Capricorn mode. I'm a Capricorn midheaven. My 10th house cusp is in Capricorn. My 9th house cusp is in Capricorn. I got Capricorn on 2 houses. And I also have 2 planets, Uranus and Neptune are conjuncted in Capricorn in my chart. So I'm going to be getting a Uranus trine here pretty soon. That's interesting. I'm going to be getting a Uranus trine, and Uranus is also going to be conjuncting my moon in Taurus at the same time. I'm excited though because it's a really progressive energy, and it's a very sort of seahorse star type of energy that I've been experiencing as well. Anyway, and so I was like out for a few days after that. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so tired. But this is kind of sort of this energy that came up for her, in that what's most important, it's this homophone energy where it's the past is the past, and it's going to sound like whatever it sounds like, but the difference is going to be in how you spell it, and how you spell it is going to be what gives it its meaning, which is going to be what informs the position you have now, the vision you have now, and the way that you move forward into that. And if it's one of those things where sometimes it's a WHALE whale and a WELL whale, that inconsistency is understandable for the space of transition that we're in, but it's not necessary. Consistency will go a long way here. And that's been the case for a minute. But it's like, consistently what is also a question. And I just watched Into the Woods the other day, and they were, what did they say? It's in that Children Will Listen song at the end, the second time they sing it. Because at first they're like, children don't listen, and then they're like, careful. I know I've read it before, the lyrics. I'll just read them again because I don't want to mess it up. Wishes may bring problems such that you regret them, better that though than to never get them. That's a line from another part of the song, After the Happily Ever After. Wishes may bring problems such that you regret them, better that though than to never get them. So it's better to get a wish that causes problems than it is to never get the wish in the first place. And maybe part of that is just, it leads to us understanding the power that we actually hold within our own lives, and the power of the weight of our words and our intentions and the actions that we put behind them, and how it's all this glorious gumbo soup that comes together to produce whatever flavor. But if anything is missing, it's like there are certain things that you cannot put in because it's not to your liking or to your dietary, I guess I'll say restrictions, that are like you can substitute them for other things. But there are other things that even in the tiniest amount, if they're missing, you'll taste it. And sometimes we don't know what's missing, but we know that something is missing. And that's like me with celery. Back in the day, I don't know, well, I guess I haven't had celery since my taste buds flipped. I'm not necessarily excited to try. But like the chicken flavor of the top ramen, Maruchan, of the Maruchan ramen noodles, I never liked the chicken flavor. And I didn't know why for a while. Celery, for me, it's one of those things that in the tiniest amount, the whole dish tastes like celery, and I don't like it. And even if you take the celery out, if it was cooked with celery, I'll be able to taste it and I won't like it. And so one day I accidentally got the chicken flavor of ramen noodles instead of the beef because I wasn't paying attention. And this was after I had spent some time with someone who used celery in a dish. And I was like, oh, I can taste it. And even if after I took it out, I still didn't like it. And so when I ate that, I was like, oh, that flavor that I don't like, it's celery. Like I had to have that experience of being able to see the celery and to take it out and still taste the celery to know that that was the flavor, even in the tiniest amount in the sauce packet, the seasoning packet that I didn't like, that ruined the whole dish for me. And then I look at the ingredients and it says like celery seed oil or celery seed, crushed celery seed or something like that. And I was like, oh, see, this is why I don't like this flavor. I knew like, because I'm eating it, I'm like, what is this? Why don't I like this? I'm like, wait. I'm like, oh, this tastes like celery. Like, wait, is this celery? Is there celery in here? And I look at the ingredients and there it is. And I was like, oh. And so that could also be the case. And so again, it takes us back to the gong, the bat, and the bear of the thing that we choose to focus on primarily. And again, it's not to dismiss or ignore those things because those things are a part of the flavor profile. But it's this question of like how much emphasis we give certain things and how we choose to okay. I don't know if you can hear her. Let me look this song up real quick. Wishes may no, that's the wrong song. Wishes may bring problems such that you regret them. Better that though than to never get them. It just popped into my mind again. That's not careful that tells you tell. Oh gosh. Can I type please? Oh, children will listen. Duh. Children will listen lyrics. There we go. I'm sorry. So, children will listen. How do you say finale? Children will listen. How do you say to your child in the night? Nothing's all black, but then nothing's all white. How do you say it with hold up, I'm gonna have to like zoom in on this. Let me put the colors real quick. It's like I can read this, but sometimes I think I'm just so used to not being able to see that I can't see, if that makes any sense. Like for a while, I know this is an aside, but my eyes, one has been, I found out that the right eye, surprisingly, had like the cataract in my right eye was like significantly or noticeably to the professionals worse than the cataract in my left eye. But I always thought that my left eye was my better eye. No, I always thought that my left eye was my worst eye. I thought the left eye was worse than the right eye, but I use the left eye more anyway. But it's the eye that I use predominantly. And so whenever I looked, it's like my vision was predominant, like left eye vision, and my right eye would just like float off to wherever. And so after I got the right eye operated on, I did the left eye first. And it was like vision like normal, left eye dominated. After I got the right eye done, after I could see out of both eyes in a way that was like comparable to each other, it took me a day to get used to being able to see with both eyes. And so, like, while my eyes were recalibrating to the point where both of the information that they provide is being taken into account instead of it being like 85% left eye, 15% right eye, I was like seeing double for a second. And then I started playing some video games and through like all of the motion and things like that and engaging my brain and intentionally sort of keeping track of things, it helped my eyes to like realign. So now I can see out of both my left and my right eye. It's a lot more 50-50. And it actually expands the periphery of my vision while also at the same time reducing the strain on that one eye from like doing all the work. And so that's another thing about seeing the whole picture as it is instead of being predominantly focused on the loudest noise, which is the gong. Anyway, back to this. I don't know why I went all the way there, but hey. So, children will listen. How do you say to your child in the night? Excuse me. Nothing's all black, but then nothing's all white. How do you say it will be all right? How do you say it will all be all right when you know that it might not be true? What do you do? Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Guide them along the way, children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn, to learn what to be. Careful before you say, listen to me, children will listen. Careful the wish you make, wishes are children. Careful the path they take, wishes come true, not free. Careful the spell you cast, not just on children. Sometimes the spell may last past what you can see and turn against you. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. Children will listen. How can you say to a child who's in flight, don't slip away and I won't hold so tight? What can you say that no matter how slight won't be misunderstood? What do you leave to your child when you're dead? Only whatever you put in its head. Things that your mother and father had said, which were left to them too. Careful what you say, children will listen. Careful you do it too, children will see and learn. Oh, guide them that step away, children will listen. Temper with what is true, and children will turn if just to be free. Careful before you say, listen to me, children will listen. Repeat 3 times. I've never read the lyrics for this song. This is like, I like this song, but like, I didn't know all of this was in here. And that's, I guess, like, wishes may bring problems such that you regret them. Better that than to never get them, because right here, careful the wish you make, wishes are children. Careful the path they take, wishes come true, not free. Careful the spell you cast, not just on children. Sometimes the spell may last past what you can see and turn against you. Careful the tale you tell, that's the spell. The words you speak, the narrative that we perpetrate. And again, it's like the things that we put into our children a lot of times are the things that were put into us. But, and it's like at the same time, like we know that, I don't know, I'm not going to get all the way into it. Oh, the whale, the wishing well. Some of these wishes run deep though. Anyway, with the weeping willow, to me there's a heavy connection to water here. A lot of times they're by water or over water, right? And it's this tree that, like, it is this tree to weep. And it is this tree to mourn. It is this tree to be cautious. But it's like either way, with this well, family wishes come true. That speaks to generational wishes to me. With this whale, great worry over nothing. It's like either way, you don't have to be worried or concerned. And again, it's our default to be worried and concerned, but we don't have to be that way. But because things have been this way for so long, this is how we come to know this tree. This is how we come to recognize it, but that doesn't have to be the case. Now, it's also interesting to mention that when that isn't the case, the tree is probably reclassified as something else. We'd probably call it something else other than a weeping willow, right? We wouldn't know what to call this tree if its leaves were upright instead of drooping down. And we also wouldn't know that these trees already exist. We wouldn't know that these trees already exist until we see the weeping willow get turned into whatever else it turns into. And then that's when we say, oh, wait, I already know this tree. I've seen these trees all over the place. But I didn't know that, like, it was all of this. I thought it was something else. And again, it's kind of sort of back to that celery seed. It wasn't until because celery was something that I always avoided because I hated the taste of celery and because it was so overpowering. I just wouldn't pick anything up. It wasn't until I gave it a try that I was able to identify that celery taste and the thing that I didn't like. Again, something that I never even picked up. And again, there's something here about noticing the source of the noise, but not letting that drown out everything else, which again takes us back to that being in the current and being mobile with the current when it's a season of mobility, but being fixed in an organic way, rooted when it's for us to stand strong and to observe and to see and to not be affected. Oh wow. Oh wow. And August is down here. August, it's one of the months that was introduced into the calendar. July and August. August for Augustus. And I'm trying to remember who Augustus was. I think it's the person who took over right after Caesar. Was it like Tiberius Augustus something? I'm not gonna look it up. But August is something that is like what notable, something pristine, or something like that. Hey Siri, define August.
As an adjective, it means respected and impressive.
Respected and impressive.
Do you want to
there
hear?
You go. And I don't know. I think that and look, there's this big old moon here. Why is there a big old moon in August? Hello? I don't know. I don't get it. And then September is under August, but you know, the month card's going over again. August is Leo into Virgo. Was August when I did the Virgo season stuff? Or was that just, no, it probably wasn't. It was probably Virgo season. Okay. But all of that, again, oh my goodness. Oh, that's interesting. This is that Eureka type energy. Okay. All right. I'm not going to take all of these because this is a lot. Oh, no, I'm not. I already said I'm not going to do it. Oh, but look, there's the lightning though. There's the lightning. Because the kite and the key, to me, that's like Eureka. Like I've done it, I got it. Like, but there again, there's this energy of the first part is the kite. And the kite is what elevates us. The kite also has a string that connects us. Ooh, success and grace. Speaking of Greco-Roman, especially Roman, that wine, girl, that wine. There was this scene where Caesar's wife slipped him, was it a poison olive or a grape? And she had been trying to kill him for a minute to get her son to take the throne. And I think her son is the one that was August. It was like Tiberius, August, something, something. But again, I'm not going to look into it, so it might not be. But that was a feminine energy. Well, that was a female who committed that against a male to put another male in power, a male that she could more control, that she raised. But again, you know, I'm talking about children and the spells you cast and the things that you tell them and the things that stick in their heads after you're gone. But in that, honestly, her energy was a lot more masculine. And Caesar's, while he was Caesar, the way it was depicted in I Claudius, I think he was a healthy balance, but a little bit more, could be a little bit more observably feminine from the position of like the care and the nurture rather than that like ruthless anything to win type of energy. But that ruthless anything to win isn't something that is reserved to masculine energy, but it's something that we praise in masculine energy and condemn. Oh, Zelda, hey. Oh, you haven't been there till long. Okay, I feel better. I'm just over here like ranting. I got the Tea Leaf Oracle cards because I saw a lot of people using them and I wanted some, so I got them. It's something that we praise in masculine energy, but that we condemn in feminine energy. And so that's kind of sort of why it goes back to my masculine. But Claudius said that he thinks Caesar knew that that olive was poison, and he knew that his wife was after his throne. But if I recall correctly, he might not. How are you doing, Zelda? Happy New Year. I'm sorry. I'm like in it. I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying your year so far. Um, because I think Nero ended up getting the throne before Tiberius, the person who she tried to put on the throne. Or maybe not. I know that somebody kept trying to kill Nero, but Nero never died. And Nero and Caligula were two of the emperors that really drove the Roman Empire into the ground. They ruined emperordom for everybody because they were that bad. And it's interesting. Nero, he fiddled while Rome burned, is what Nero is known for. And I'm like, okay, well, definitely some Nero energy. Anyway, but it was actually Claudius. Claudius who got emperordom, I think, after Caligula and Nero. And Claudius he was a good emperor. And Claudius restored their faith in the title of the emperor. And Claudius is the reason why the system didn't fall when it should have in its time. And Claudius, well, I don't think anyone's gonna watch it. And I already spoiled that he becomes an emperor. But throughout the season, Claudius had like a stutter. And so Claudius was extremely bright, but he played it extremely low key, especially when you're dealing with people like the girl who killed Caesar to get her son the throne. Now her son was her son. And so there were some more legitimate heirs to the throne that were in between her son and the throne. And so she tried to deal with all of them. And Claudius didn't want her to take him out. So he played the fool. He was real happy to play the fool. And on her deathbed, she called him in. Is it drachma? I think drachmas are the Greek word. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. She called him in, and she was like, "You're not the fool that you pretended to be, are you?" And he was like, "No." And I think she knew that, but also again, he was like intentionally minimizing himself so he wouldn't be a threat. And he ended up placing the drachma on her eyes when she died to pay Charon at the river Styx so she could cross into the underworld so she would have that safe passage. And after everything that she kind of like took from him, and after everything that she did to conspire to plot to get her son on that throne, Claudius still gave her that courtesy when she passed. And it's interesting that it was Claudius that gave her that, because he was probably at that point one of the few people who really knew that what she was doing behind the scenes and who had like been there from the beginning. And he knew that, but still gave her that courtesy. But anyway, grapes reminded me of that. And because I was already talking about August and Tiberius and Caesar, it reminded me of that because they were drinking wine and she picked out an olive and she fed it to Caesar. And he looked at her and ate it. And Claudius was like, I think he knew that that olive was poison. And then he died. But anyway, I think the more interesting part here's success again. Like there's a lot of success here. Also like danger, watch out. But success is also here again with the gong and the bat. It's how we decide to navigate that makes and mirroring that seahorse energy again. That really determines things. I've been slightly more focused. Some of those trains of thought I kept and I regained. I'm kind of surprised because I'd mentioned that because I think I lost this one now, but it just reminded me of that. With Claudius, and again, he eventually became emperor when the empire was sort of dying from the inside, and that's what seems to be the case. All great empires historically, it seems, have died from the inside. And America is coming upon that Pluto return, which is the average age of an empire. Just I saw that on Twitter a few months ago. Somebody was like, the average age of an empire is 250 years. Astrology Twitter, what does that mean? And then somebody was like, well, that's roughly the time of a Pluto return. And then I looked to see when America's Pluto return is, and it's in like 2023, maybe. I don't remember. But America's Pluto is like 27 degrees Scorpio or something like that. Scorpio, Capricorn. It's like 27 degrees Capricorn or something like that. So America is actually in the space of a Pluto return, where it's kind of sort of very important for us because we're reaching that age where a lot of empires have died. And again, they all die from the inside, going back to that Nero energy. He fiddled while Rome burned. And he actually, I think Nero actually, did he set fire to some of the stuff? Nero and Caligula were two of the emperors that were just like way out. I think there was some inbreeding in the family. There was definitely some things between some siblings in the family. I've heard Game of Thrones it's kind of similar. And not to get into that whole whatever. But then again, it was Claudius that came in and did his best, but that ended up preserving something that was time to go. And again, I guess going back to the beginning with Uranus and how it sort of can do things, or the energy that I'm feeling from it. And it may be just like the energy that I'm attributing to Uranus, honestly. I don't know at this point. Like I said, I'm not an astrologer. But Uranus did eat his children. But then you see, hold up, Uranus and Rhea. Who was Gaia? It was Uranus and Rhea, Gaia and Kronos. So Uranus ate his children and locked some of them up. And then Rhea helped her kids overthrow their father. And that's what Kronos did. And when Kronos had kids with Gaia, he did the same as his father did. He ate his children, or he locked them up, or whatever. And then Gaia and I believe Rhea plotted to get the kids out of his belly, and then stuff happened. That's when Zeus rose up. But Zeus was basically conditioned since birth, and he did what he was told to do, just like Kronos did what he was coerced to do by his mother to his father, and castrated him and threw his genitalia into the ocean, and Aphrodite was born of the sea foam. And so it's, again, it's kind of sort of this weeping willow. It's that kind of sort of that children, whatever path, or wishes, like, right? Wishes last for longer than we can see sometimes, and they eventually turn against us. And it's like, and then he kind of sort of gets punished for what he was groomed to be. Where was I going with that? Uranus change. Yeah, so the Titans, Cronus, they actually led the golden era. It was an age where they didn't even need laws. Like, things were so chill and mellow. And maybe since he knew what the world was going to become after the gods took over, that's why he started eating them. Because after Zeus killed Kronos and locked all the Titans up in Tartarus and started ruling, that's when things really started falling apart. And the gods just did things unchecked. And Hera, Juno, his wife, couldn't do anything against Zeus and couldn't stop him from impregnating a whole bunch of mortals who probably didn't even ask for a swan or a golden shower or whatever form Zeus decided to take these women. Instead, like, she couldn't do anything against him, so she would punish the women and their children because her husband was unfaithful. And it's like, okay, girl, like, I know that, like, he is Zeus and you can't really do nothing, but it's just like this whole and that's the thing that we do as humans as well. We don't really do anything to address the actual problems a lot of times. Like, if we have an issue with our boss or whatever, we take those problems home and we wait for a situation where we have a little bit of power or a little bit of say or a little bit of authority, and we act out the things that we wish that we could do or whatever. And again, it goes back to what I was saying the last time I was on here about perpetuating things instead of choosing to end them. And maybe that's what this kite and the key and the success in the grapes is going to be leading us to. It's this aha realization of what keeps the cycle turning, what keeps certain wheels spinning. And it's the decision to have them stop. Like, it ends with me. This is the graveyard for all of that which should have passed a long time ago. For those things that are beyond the point of decay. And to get us to move into all of this, all of the better things that we have available to us. But again, as the creators of our own realities, and with reality being basically a collective consensus in some ways, at some point, probably with this kite and key energy, we have to realize that our choice and our focus and our intention and attention, the divinity of it, the power of it, especially when backed by action, conscious action and alignment. And again, the kite flies high above the ground. And the key is what conducts electricity. The key is what entices that lightning. The key is that which encourages that divine communication, reignition type of energy. But again, it has to be grounded to something. If it's not grounded to anything, it continues to flow. And it's this thing that we feel, but we can't hold on to. And so since we can't hold on to it, we get addicted to the feeling, basically. And here's a seahorse literally grounding itself in the current. Current works for water and electricity. It's all the same. That's why water conducts electricity, because the current flows through the current. Maybe not. But hey, speaking of words that have sound the same or are spelled the same or whatever, current and electricity, current and this. And it's actually interesting because in the physics that I took, they actually, like, electricity, well, maybe not. I think it was easiest for me to understand because of Kirchhoff's laws and Ohm's law and things like that, how different physical systems are basically the same. There are different roles in physical systems. So whether you're dealing with electricity or some other kind of flow work like hydraulic, or if you're dealing with things that are more mechanical, they all run off, like, there's a resistance, there's a capacitance, there's the current, there's like the power, the differential, things like that, the things that motivate things. Because in physics, if there's no difference between two things, there's nothing to encourage something to flow from one area to another. And things typically flow from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. Now, spirit is as concentrated as it can be in the realm of spirit. That's why spirit trickles down into the physical from a higher spiritually, energetically dense position to a lower. So it passes through the mental and the astral and everything in between. Anyway. And I talked about that last time too, as far as polarity and how, or duality. Polarity is like a polarized duality. Duality is just the id, ego, light, dark, positive, negative, masculine, feminine nature of things that creates the space for creation. Because when they're all one, it's almost like they're inseparable, non-differentiable. You know, if they hold that polarity, or if they hold that polarity, it gives us that space and that gamut in between to actually live our lives. If it's all collapsed, then there's no separation from the one and the all, or from the one and the many. And while we are all reflections and pieces and fragments of the one, there is still, I talk about it all the time. I'm not necessarily going to get into it because I'll get lost again. Anyway, let me finish this. It's already been an hour and I feel like I can be on here all day. I'm probably going to take these on the other channel. Anyway, the kite and the key it's that eureka. It's that we have to ground it. And I think sometimes, and so when I first got into spirituality for myself, one of the first things I came across was ayahuasca and plant medicine. And like, I don't really have a wide experience with a lot of substances. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've had drinks. I waited until I was almost 22 years old to drink. Alcoholism runs in my family, and that's a cycle that I didn't want to repeat, so I chose not to. And when I drink, I don't know, I don't get lost in it. I'm not drinking to compensate for something, or drinking to feel something, or drinking to forget something. And so it seems, I feel like that statement is loaded with judgment. But it seems to be the case that there are people who drink for those reasons, and because of those reasons, they have a dependency on alcohol to make them feel some type of way, to make them forget, or for it to be a time where they don't have to think about all the things that they think about that keep them from doing the things that they want to do, or keep them from enjoying things. And it's like, okay, well, if you deal with all the other stuff, you wouldn't have to drink to deal with the other stuff. It would just be gone. If you remove the gongs, it'll be easier to see, but the gongs are screaming at you so that you can address them and move forward. It's not necessarily to be stuck there or to be blinded by them. Anyway, since I don't do any of that, it's a lot easier for me to not get lost in the depths of the bottle and not overdo it. The people that I try to drink with, it's like I like to have like one or two drinks. And they're like, well, if I'm not like getting blackout drunk, or like if I'm not super buzzed, then like what's the point of drinking? And I'm like, that's a fair question. Like, that's a fair point. But also at the same time, like, I'm not going for that. And so I found out I'm not drink compatible with some of my friends. And I, for gosh darn sure, I'm not going to be the one to take care of people. I'm like, no, I didn't ask for this. Like, if I had to be, I probably would be. But it's like, mm, no, I didn't. Like, I'm also trying to enjoy my night or whatever. And I'm not going to, like, you made your choices and your decisions. And that's why I just don't drink with people like that. So I can't. When people are like, let's get a drink, I'm like, sometimes I just pass. Anyway, I had other things that I distracted myself with, so I'm not getting on here trying to be preachy. But if that's what it is, it's what it is. But anyway, it's a dependency, and so it seemed that like while people were having amazing experiences on plant medicine, it became a form of dependency. And I didn't want to do that. And I was like, I'd rather find my spirituality in a way that is true and authentic to me, that is always there when I want or need, and not dependent upon me entering these like induced altered states of consciousness from physical substances outside of me. Like, to me, that's not sustainable. And I'm interested in things that are sustainable for me and to me. So I found out very early that that's not what I wanted. Also, from the very beginning, since that was a lot of the first stuff I was coming into. For me, it cemented like I want to find something that is true and authentic to me. And I'll take the parts that resonate and I'll leave the parts that don't. I haven't really found anything that 100% resonates for me, honestly. And I think that's fine. It's my journey, it's my path, and it sounds like what I would have chosen because I did choose it. When I was down here, I chose that. And so that probably also informs a lot of the positions that I hold. And again, I believe that we experience the things that we experience for many reasons, not always to dive full into them. Sometimes it is to experience them. Sometimes it's to get us to think and reflect and ask ourselves how we want to move forward and what we're okay with handing our power over to or forming a dependency on or linking to anyone. But again, it seems that there's no real way to ground a lot of that. And so even spiritually, we can become dependent upon things or people to give us what we should be creating the foundation for within ourselves to receive. And it's not that you're never going to need anybody, and it's not that an outside perspective isn't useful or helpful, because there are other sparks of supreme consciousness out there that hold very valid and valuable information. And there is power in community and connectivity. But again, it's like, I don't know. That's why when I talk to a lot of people about crystals and stuff or whatever, because like I've heard that hematite is a grounding stone. I don't know anything about crystals besides what I've come across. But in my mind, it's like it only does so much for us to like open our third eyes and our crown chakras and to receive these downloads and these other things, or to work on whatever. Because if we're not grounding it, then we'll lose it. And it's like this open channel that retains nothing. And I think it is for us to retain some things, because if we don't retain anything, we'll be forever these drooping, weeping willows. It's only when we can hold on to the water that it expands our structure, that it fills these voids, these pockets that are intentionally there to be filled by this water, by this fluid, to give us an increased functionality. If you get where I'm going with this seahorse, male, masculine, creative energy, when things get engorged, then it changes how it functions, and it promotes other functionalities and increased functionalities, and it allows it to do things that it isn't otherwise capable of, because there's no retention. But that's why I love the success in the graves, because if we can ground it, this is what we have to look forward to. If not, then it's this continued, it's like Ben Franklin still out there getting shocked today because they didn't find a way to harness the power of electricity. Or like every time you wanted power in your house, you had to tie a key to a kite and hook that up to some wire and hope that the lightning strikes it so you can have a temporary moment of power, a temporary moment of sight, a temporary moment of vision. And that's the thing about the bat. When we're operating in solar energies, the energy of the bat is less necessary. When light reaches the depths to those scorpionic levels, where there is no light, and so things evolve in the absence of sunlight. And while it is interesting and majestic and miraculous that there are things that can live in the absence of light, also when light reaches those places and when times change, it's like they have to get used to that. And evolution is a slow process. But it's time for us to learn to live in light. And again, with this energy, it's almost like it can be as slow as it needs to be. As slow as we make it, it's already here. It's been here. And the energies that were here, it's an evolution now from those, because it's getting brighter. And again, the bat and those deep sea creatures, they have these alternate ways of perceiving, mostly because of something that's missing, aka the light. But now that the light is here, that's why this bat energy is kind of sort of fading out, and it's time for the bear to come out of hibernation, because it's getting warmer, it's brighter, the sun is coming out, it's springtime, time for the bear to come out of hibernation. And also there's this energy then of these things that have been long waiting for us to claim them, or to be in a space of being able to claim them. But it's all dependent on us and what we choose and what we do and how we actually show up and how we actually handle and address things, because continuing to ignore things is not the way. And Age of Aquarius is not a cure-all. Age of Aquarius means nothing if we don't choose to make it everything that we're hoping it is. Because free will and free choice isn't going anywhere. And just because we're in a new age doesn't mean that everything is like it's not a free pass. And I feel like some of the hardest things that I did last year, honestly, were some of the easiest things I've been doing. Because I came into the position in space of like, oh, like I care about myself enough for me to do these things for me. I care about myself enough to elevate myself out of this because I can't continue in this. Bottom of the deck is a month of the year, and it's October. Well, the 1 month we didn't see before. That's the month of Halloween. Look at these fall leaves. I know Russ was talking about the fall equinox. No. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yes, the fall equinox in the southern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, we're moving into spring equinox in March at the spring, but in the southern hemisphere, where it is currently summer, we're going to be moving into the fall. But October is also interesting because it's like a return to the calendar that existed before ego sort of inserted itself through the months of July and August that were to commemorate someone who had come before. And so it is almost an energy of returning to a time. And if returning to a time, it's probably returning to that golden age and that golden era where the Titans were, you know, here and running things, and things were so good that we didn't need laws. And I think that's something that's just in general, because the way the world is and because of, how we operate in it and because of history, a lot of times when we think like there are no laws, we automatically assume it's like a no man's land of lawlessness where people are getting away with anything and everything and there's nothing to hold people accountable. But the golden age and the golden era, it's like there were no laws because laws were not necessary. Like you didn't have to tell people not to kill people. That didn't need to be a commandment for people to know that killing people is wrong. You didn't have to tell people not to steal because people weren't doing it. They didn't need for that to be told to them to not do it. And it's the connection to that part of us that knows morally right from wrong. But with free will and free choice, we can know right from wrong, but choose to do wrong anyway. I've been there. I know. And it's never fulfilling. It never worked out for me. So I'm just like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not going to do this. It's like, why do I keep revisiting this situation? I'm never fulfilled here. I know I'm not going to be fulfilled this time. And just because the opportunity is there doesn't mean I should take it. Now, it took me not being in that situation anymore to stop taking that opportunity. It took me to be presented with the opportunity when it wasn't so immediately available, even though it was making itself available to me. To be like, you know what? Nah, I pass. I was done with this a long time ago, and the opportunity knew that I was done with that a long time ago. Opportunity was like, yeah, like it's been dead for a while, basically. I'm like, yeah, you know. Anyway, um, that was what, last year? That was like a year ago. Hmm. But yeah, that's this. Like I said, I feel like this is something I could go on with forever. I feel like there were a lot of branches and pathways that had opened themselves up to me, but I only got one mouth, and I can't say 15 different things at the same time. When we get back into telepathic communication, oof, it's just like all of it, boom, 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 boom at once. Just like, wait, hold up, like think slower. I can't get off it. How is my brain expanding in like 25,000 different directions simultaneously? It's like because there are many, it branches off and it all creates this picture. There are many different lines and shapes and colors when you're creating a masterpiece. And we're painting it all at once. Okay, so I will get a final card. Ooh, what's this? Caterpillar in the chain. Oh, oof. Well, caterpillar is about transformation, but it's not the butterfly yet. And with the chain, I feel like this is us stuck in a state of infancy. With the bull right here, Uranus is in Taurus. Bull says, do not back down from opposition. Show strength and fortitude. And that's where Uranus is right now. It's like, no, this is happening one way or another. And either you're going to be with it, or you're going to be swept up under it, or you're going to be forgotten and left behind. But it's going to happen. The caterpillar in the chain, I feel like this is us being stuck in a state of basically spiritual infancy. Because at the end of the day, we ask more from things than they can give to us. Like they can't give us the things that we need to find within ourselves. At best, they can guide and encourage us to do that. But it becomes this dependency, and we stunt ourselves. The caterpillar says, things will not always be this way. A change is coming. Chain says chain of events that will affect your life. Oh, so that's not a bondage chain. This with the bull, change is going to be coming in a way that we don't necessarily expect. And we can't look at one link in this chain expecting to know where it's going. I think sometimes we do get a little overly fixated on one thing, and we know what the ultimate goal will be. And I've said this before. We know what the ultimate goal will be, and we know the piece that we know. And so it can be easy for us to attach all of that to this, not necessarily knowing that this causes all of this to happen before we get there. And so if we fixate on this, we miss out on all of this. So we never get there. We're stuck here because we're not allowing that to happen. And that's what keeps us sort of like spiritually enfeebled. Is that a word? I don't think enfeebled is a word, or spiritually feeble, maybe. And that's the thing that we kind of sort of we get latched onto, we hold on to, and it's like, well, I thought this was it, I thought this was the one, I thought this was my big break. And it's like, no, this is one of many dominoes, one event in a series of events that needed to happen to get you to that position in that space. And if you fixate here, you won't get there. This is not the end. There are no endings, really. There are only beginnings. But for one thing to begin, another thing has to end. So there are both simultaneous endings and beginnings. But it's to not get fixated on the one link. And it's like, if you couldn't see why before, then hopefully, I guess you see it now. And this can be in anything. It may be a time to throw all of what we know out the window, or a lot of what we know out the window. And that is the great conundrum. How are we supposed to progress? How is one person in the family supposed to do better or do more than previous generations if all we have to pour into our kids is what was poured into us? If all we have to pass on is what was given to us? The answer is it's our duty and responsibility to grow ourselves and to then put our growth, pour our expansion into those who come later so that they can build upon what it is that is established, not so that they live within it and are confined by it. And it's not really, in that sense, it's not really a parent's job to do any of that for you. So that, oh, it wasn't poured into me, my mama, my daddy, my guardian, never, like I didn't have them, they weren't that great, or they didn't do it. Like none of that is valid, because anything that they would have given you, it still would have fallen upon you to build off of that and to expand and to grow anyway. That's not a pass to keep you from doing it. You might have more growth and healing to do. That, I guess you could say, is unfair or whatever. But, well, that's you might think it's comparatively more, but again, like it falls on all of us to do that for ourselves and to pass on what we know for someone else to build upon that even further later. So that's what I got. I'm gonna end this here. Don't ask me what this was. I just got a new deck and I wanted to pull a few cards. If you see me, you see me. If you don't, you know why. And I hope y'all have a good whatever, whenever. And I hope you're acting in alignment to make all your wildest dreams come true. Because for those who believe in and act alignment with the miraculous and the wonderful and the amazing, those things are possible and are constantly happening in ways that you may not even know or understand in that moment. Again, it's that chain of events that leads to that eventual growth. But if we get stuck on a link in the chain along the way, we never reach the end of it. Back to the seahorse and the star. Success is guaranteed in this situation with the stipulation that you do what is necessary to get that success. Like, if you could be a millionaire and all you had to do was show up to a place, you like you're a guaranteed millionaire, but you have to show up. Or all you have to do is sign the check and go cash it. Or give me like your information and I'll just directly deposit it so you don't have to even go cash it. You don't even have to go to the bank. I'll cash app it to you. But you gotta send me your cash tag so I can send it to you. And a lot of times we don't even want to do that much. They're like, oh, it wasn't meant for me. It wasn't meant for me. Because I did nothing and it didn't just invite itself in and do everything for me. It wasn't meant for me. I'll keep waiting. It's like, okay. If that's what you choose to believe, okay. Then whatever you believe, you're right. We kind of sort of live in we're all entitled to our own beliefs and we're all right in our own minds. So there's that. I don't know. All right, y'all. Bye.